Welcome to the Success Resequencing Project. I'm Debbie Ponticus.
And I'm Jen Newman.
Join us as we challenge the traditional definitions of success so you can build a fulfilling path of your own.
Get ready for inspired, candid conversations while gaining tools, inspiration, and confidence to create your own authentic success story.
I think we've all heard the saying, when one door closes, another one opens. But what happens when the door closes unexpectedly and shatters your dreams? Robyn Patterson, the founder of Mack Media Relations, was faced with this unfortunate situation almost 10 years ago. And on today's podcast, she will share her inspiring story about how she turned heartbreak into motivation. Now the proud owner of one of Phoenix's top PR agencies, Robyn's story is sure to inspire all of us to embrace a closed door as a path correction, not a roadblock, and that these corrections can lead to even bigger and better opportunities. Well, Robyn, thank you so much for joining Jen and I today on the Success Resequencing Project.
We're so happy that you're here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do for our listeners is just give everyone just a kind of high-level bio, if you will, of who you are and how you've gotten to where you are today. So you grew up here in the Valley. You went to ASU and graduated with a PR degree.
Yep. Go Devils.
Yay. You started working in PR right after you graduated and had a chance to move to California.
Yes.
Where you thought, okay, great. I can work from wherever. I'm going to go and enjoy this. And basically you realize the only thing you truly like about California is the weather.
Yeah. And the beach. That was it.
Amen. Yes. So you moved back to Phoenix. You shifted gears, a pretty big shift. And you were a radio personality for a local radio station.
Yes.
And you call this your dream job. You know, at the time, this was like you thought you had found it. This is what you were going to do. Then about a year later, you unexpectedly got let go. And for you, that was a devastating, probably a low point, if you will, in your career. But that time gave you some clarity. That time allowed you to kind of sit in the noise or sit in the white space a little bit and figure out what is it that you're supposed to be doing. And that's when you started your own PR firm. And now, 8.5 years later, you are the owner of the award-winning Mack Media Relations. You have over 20 clients with various industries that you represent. And last but not least, you're a proud married mom of 2.
Yes.
All right.
Well done.
Welcome. Thank you.
That's me to a T.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to kind of allow our listeners to kind of understand kind of what your background is. But I think what we want to focus on today is really a lot of those pivots that happened in your life and how you've managed through those and things you've learned from those moments. Because I think there's going to be some listeners that can resonate with that and learn what maybe get some ideas for what they can do with their life. So let's take a trip back to, sorry about this, but let's go back to the lowest day in your career.
All right.
So
For which you have the picture to prove it.
I do.
Which is my favorite.
Yeah. So talk about that day and kind of what happened and how you kind of took charge of that day.
Yeah. So I did not see it coming, mostly because I was under a 2-year contract at the time. So, at normal day, went into work unexpectedly. Went through my shift and get pulled in to, a small office, and HR was just sitting there and just said, "This was your last day. Like, we've enjoyed working with you." And it was a huge shock. And at the time too, like I had so much personal stuff going on that was like, I had just gotten through a breakup and it was just, mid-20s, just everything was just a mess.
Sure.
So obviously being let go from a very public job, like my job wasn't just like an average, like, oh, you're fired and like you can choose who you want to tell that you were let go.
Right.
Like everybody in the community that listened knew I was on air one day and then not the next day. So they knew that something happened to me. Yeah. And usually that's a firing of some sort. So I felt like I went in hibernation mode. Like I kind of like hid from the public eye on social, and I just was like very to myself. And I remember being so emotionally drained that day that I took a picture of myself because I was like, I feel like I'm going to want to remember this low point. And I feel like everyone should. Like, everyone takes pictures of the high points, you know, and shares those.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to be a interesting memory to look back on.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't share it until a year later when I was in my current business, but it was nice to look back on and be like, wow, look at where I am today versus a year ago. And that was the lowest point. So,
yeah. Well, and I'm sorry to start off our podcast with your lowest point, but the reason why I did that is because I think what you have to offer as how you handled that, I think is something that can be really inspiring to others. I mean, to sit and pause in that moment and to take a step back. Like, when you got that dream job, you didn't have a lot of skills in that job. Like, you were just, what a friend of yours said, hey, you should audition. They're looking for someone. You didn't even know that you would love it as much as you did.
Right.
And so you were like basically handed this opportunity and thought, wow, I have now, I know what I'm supposed to be doing in life. Like, and then a year in, the carpet's pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, to have that wherewithal to say, I want to remember this day.
Yeah.
You know, because this is.
I would love to know, like, that is to me a power of social media, of learning that over time, because I don't know that we would have done that 20 years ago. To think of, I'm going to take a picture of this moment, right? We're so, to your point, that highlight reel that's shown on social media all day, every day, to be able to capture that. I love that you thought of that. And I really feel like that is something that we all take a lesson from, which is to capture the highs and the lows, because that's the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of just focusing on the highlight reel.
Yeah. And even if it's for your personal, like, even if it's just for yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
sure, no one needs to look at it, but I think it's cool to look back on like low points and then compare it to where you are today.
Yeah.
Because even those low points make average days so much better. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that job was randomly presented to me. And like you said, I think it presented itself as a dream job. And it was one of those things of like, wow, this opportunity, you know, it came to me and it felt like, it was like magic. Like, this is so amazing. And to be given something like that and have it be taken away so quickly was really, really tough. But
what were some of the emotions that you felt at that time?
I was mostly embarrassed, I think, just because I felt like felt like failure, and I was embarrassed because it was such a public let go.
It's that shame
that
feeling.
I was like, I wasn't good enough, and so now everybody in the town knows that I'm no longer there, and so
But on that, so where I want to go with that now is, okay, you're in this moment. You took some time off. So talk to us about that journey to where you decided to do what you're doing today, because I think that's truly the victory in this whole story.
Always.
Is that, you know, there's the obstacle is sometimes that's in your way is sometimes when you get through it, it's like the bad breakup, right? Where you're like you just said, when you're like, no one's ever going to be better. And then you actually, the person that was right next, the next door that opens was actually the dream job.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that transition of taking some time for yourself and really kind of figuring out what you wanted to do next.
Yeah. I mean, I was very fortunate to have a severance from my job. So I was able to take some time for myself and kind of figure out what's next. And I wasn't very like, I wasn't scrambling and in a place where I was like, you know, feeling all these emotions and having to figure out what's next. Like, I just took some time. And then, like I said, I kind of was hibernating a little bit. Like, I just, you know, it was embarrassing. And so I took about a month off. And during that month, I was like, you know what? I need to capitalize on this time because I feel like now is the perfect opportunity to go back to what I was doing, but try it on my own, because I looked at what I was doing before and I was like, I loved PR. Like, I think that definitely is my calling. I thought at the time radio was my dream job, but it wasn't. And, you know, I think this was as a stepping stone to creating my dream job in a way. And so I took that time and I networked with everyone and their mom. Like, I took everyone to coffee and lunch, and I was just asking all the questions and like, how do you do it? And, and I was asking friends, can I volunteer to pretend like I'm doing your PR to make it look like I already had clients.
Exactly.
Because perception's reality. You know what I mean? Like if I launch out of the gates, I already have 2 clients. It's like, wow, she's killing it, So I pulled the trigger and I was like, I set myself up with timelines. I was like, listen, I'm going to give myself 3 to 6 months. If I don't have a realistic, like 2 to 3 clients, I'm going to, start looking for a job. By, 12 months, if I don't have X amount of clients, I'm going to, look for another job. So I gave myself a timeline, and thankfully I didn't have to shift gears. I kept going, and it's been 8.5 years.
Yeah. And what was the reaction of the people who knew you, when you said, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to open up my own firm. Like, what was that? What kind of reaction did you get from the community around you?
It was incredible. I think the support is what was so motivating. I think people want other people everyone wants people to succeed. And I think when you publicly share those milestones with people, I think they're going to be cheering you on. And I feel like my personal brand got a big boost from that radio stepping stone in my life, that career, even though it was such a interesting like hiccup in a way in my career. I feel like it helped so much kind of give me a name in the community and give me some credibility and more experience working in this industry that allowed for people to support me and follow along on my journey, So I really feel like I had a strong support system, and people really wanted to do anything and everything to get me to be successful. And it was really awesome. From my past agencies to friends and family to fans from radio to even my former boss at radio, he still reaches out to me and tells me how proud he is of me, which is awesome because it's awesome. Like to have a former boss that, let you go from a position, now he sees from the sidelines, he's like, he knew that I wasn't the right fit for that job, but he sees me, what I'm doing and what I'm meant to do.
Love that.
Yeah.
So what edge?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I know.
No, what edge? I know. What edge did that experience, being in radio, being front and public facing, what edge did that give you to actually be able to bring on the clients that you have today in terms of how you media train them, how you get them ready for what they're about to do? What would you not have had if you hadn't been through that experience?
Well, I think a lot of my clients find value in that I have that experience. A lot of people go from media to PR, not PR to media.
Exactly.
Because when you're in the media, it's pretty easy to understand that industry and then get into PR, but it's very, very rare to go do the opposite because it requires a lot more training.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I worked in radio, when I went into the industry, I had 0 training. So it was a whole different game, and I had anxiety for a year. It was not fun. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Always glamorous on the outside, the media business, but it's not glamorous. But I think my clients really see value in that. And I think it lends me some credibility in this industry, especially locally.
Yeah.
I don't think many PR professionals locally have that experience.
Right.
And I like to present that because I feel like I do know what makes a good pitch. Having received pitches, I know what makes a good interview. I just try to leverage what experience I got in that 1 year.
Yeah.
And really, use it for my client's benefit as best as I can. So
absolutely.
That is what I can do, and I feel like it has led me very well.
Oh, that's awesome.
And in this kind of moment where you resequenced your path, what was the decision to start your own business versus go back and work for a PR agency?
Yeah.
Well, I had gone from a huge agency out in LA, working with brands like Hilton and national real estate brokerages. And I just felt like, and this sounds bad, but I felt like I would have been taking a step back a little bit even further in my career if I would have gone to work for an agency in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because LA is a huge market for PR.
Sure.
And I felt like I had kept going up. And radio, I might have gone down salary wise, but I felt like, oh, this is awesome. It's in the industry.
Yeah.
It gives me credibility, but like, I'm like, I think I need to try going on my own. I have a really strong resume. I can always apply somewhere. I think my backup plan was to apply somewhere in-house, probably like,
got it.
Do more like in-house corporate job. Right. Because I definitely think that would have been something I'd been interested in. But for an agency locally, I just felt like I needed to create one that I wanted to do. And I still had a passion for working with local businesses. And I just, took everything that I had learned from all the different agencies I had worked with and the radio experience. And I just went with it.
Yeah.
And it's served me well. So
what do you think it was about you that made this successful? Like if you were to, like, someone else may be sitting there thinking, okay, and whether it's starting a PR firm or whatever, what do you think it was about you that you learned over time that helped you be successful as an entrepreneur?
Outside of just like good branding and stuff like that, I mean, that's huge. Right. I think having some sort of good marketing and skills in that work, like I think everyone needs, and if you're a business or an entrepreneur, you have to know that stuff. Yeah. So branding and social media is important, as well as PR, which I did my own PR. So that was helpful.
Sure.
Outside of that, I think I'm very transparent and authentic in my opinion when it comes to networking. And I think I am really focused on, I don't like to oversell. And I feel like a lot of people in this industry oversell and underdeliver. Yeah. And I'm all about quality over quantity too. And I tell people that, like, and I'm honest with my clients. And I just, I also started off like with really reasonable prices. I don't want to be a very high priced agency that no one can afford. I want it to be, I want to work with brands because it's an exciting brand to work with, Now I don't want to be like missing out on the opportunity only because they can't afford me. Yeah. So I make it work. But yeah, I think, so kind of back to your question, I think it's just, finding your niche and finding what makes you, unique. And what I did is, I was truthful in kind of who I was and who I wanted to work with. And I presented myself in that exact way when I would like meet with clients. Yeah. So
what was it though about you personally, do you think? What was an attribute you think you had that allowed yourself to come out of one of the darkest periods and now charge forward, take that step, keep one foot in front of the other? What was in you that said, I can do this?
I hustled. I mean, I remember, because at the time, I was single, so my business was my baby.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. I remember I was like working nights and like on my computer, and like it was everything to me. And it didn't. And I'm very fortunate to where I honestly feel like I've created a job that doesn't feel like work.
Yeah,
I really do, because I love it so much, and also I've created it to where it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like nagging work. Like I really truly enjoy what I do. Yeah. So I think it's just the hustle that I put in. So I really do think I found, because in the very beginning I was like, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to offer this service and this service. And then I offered it and I was like, I don't want to do that. And I'm not good at that. And like, why? And I think a lot of agencies do that.
Right.
They spread themselves super thin and that's where I think they fail, because they overcommit, and I stay in my lane.
Yep.
And it's okay, because you can outsource. Businesses hire specialists in certain industries. For sure. And that's what I specialize in, and I own it, and that's what I love. And I also love
key. I think that's key. Exactly what you just said, which is knowing yourself, knowing your lane and your zone of genius. And as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to think that if you can't do everything, that somehow you won't be successful. And when you're able to say from the beginning, you know what? I'm best if I stay here and I'll outsource whatever else I need to for the betterment, not only of my clients, but for my business. I mean, you and I have talked about this a million times of the things you wish you knew when we started our businesses and tried to do everything. That is, to know that right off the bat is something that I think every entrepreneur needs to take to heart and to really hold space for what can I do and what can't I do, knowing there is a solution out there. And you're also then perpetuating other people's businesses, which now you're creating this really cool symbiotic relationship that is actually where everybody wins.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that, to know that is really kudos to you for knowing that right off the bat. Because sometimes it takes years for people to figure that out. And to your point, they can go under in that amount of time, or have to completely change direction. So that's key takeaway. That's awesome.
And also, I think it's important to accept, like, it's okay not to grow, like, super fast. Like, for the first 5 years, it was me. Because I was like, you know what? I have worked for an agency of 50 women. I have worked for an agency of 2 people. And I was like, you know what? I want to take in the clients I want to work with. I want to own those because I want to represent them and I want them to trust me and I want to do the work. So it was just me for the first 5 years. I took pride in who I worked with. And then I brought on an awesome intern. And at the time, I was pregnant. So I was like, this is perfect. I'll just, I was really worried. What am I going to do with maternity leave? Because is that a thing when you're an entrepreneur?
Right. Right.
So I was like, I guess this is perfect. I'm going to hire her. She'll kind of help while I'm out for a little bit. And she's been with me for almost 4 years now. So it's just us two. And, I've gone back and forth. So I keep trying to grow, but, and like I have growth, what are those called?
Growing pains.
Growing pains.
Yeah.
But like, to me, I've had a client go like, good job knowing that like, you don't always have to grow to be successful.
Yeah.
Like I like where I'm at.
Let's talk about that.
I really love that we're in such a sweet spot where there's always room for growth, but we're at the same time, I'm happy where we're at.
That's really, let's simmer on that. Let's unpack that.
Yeah, we're going to
unpack that. Because I think what you're talking about is a struggle that a lot of entrepreneurs have. I have that struggle. I'm sure you have that struggle.
Totally.
Most people do, that think in order to have a successful, thriving business, that means you constantly have to grow and be bigger and bigger and get that next client and scale. And it is stressful.
Of course it is.
And you lose the whole passion or reason why you're doing it in the first place, sometimes.
And you can sometimes lose the intimacy that comes from having quality over quantity, right? Which I think that's why it's really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to let go, because they don't want to lose that connection that they have with their clients. They're afraid that if they start to expand their resources, there's a fear that they're going to lose that personal connection. So as you've done that with bringing on someone, what did that look like when you brought that person on? What avatar did you have in mind of who you were going to bring on to help not only the situation you were in, being pregnant and knowing you needed coverage, but as you've continued to work together, what were some of those attributes that person brought to the table that you realized actually supported you and actually made you better? And didn't feel the need to keep just hiring to hire to hire. Like, what does that look like?
So I obviously been thinking about this a lot because I've struggled to find the next person for our team. So with Erica, who's my account director, so she was with me for a year before I hired her full time. And she was an intern, and I was her only internship. So you can essentially say that I was her only experience in PR.
Right.
So she, from day one, has learned my way. And I'm not saying this should be the way for everybody, but it's like, and it's, I will say, I feel like there's also a different work ethic with the different generations.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to say that. I've noticed it. I've noticed it big time. But, so she's my generation, so we're good. We're good. We're both, same boat. But she's like my right hand. So she's learned my way. And honestly, I think finding somebody that you I wouldn't say necessarily train, but can just kind of grow with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And learn their style. I've had issues with bringing people on that have previous experience, and it's just trying to get them to learn different it's just hard when they have, and I mean, it's just, that's just the challenging from having other experience.
Yeah. And I think your industry is similar to Jen and I's industry in real estate, where it's a relationship-based industry. Our clients are choosing us because they know us.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's hard as, when you bring people on, there's an anxiety, at least I have an anxiety of like, okay, are they going to think I'm passing them off?
Right.
Are they going to think that I don't care about them because I'm putting someone else in front of them?
Right.
Now, the truth is, as long as you're educating your clients on why that person is in the picture and that what their role is, that they are more than welcoming to know that you're growing enough to have someone that you need help with. But it's a struggle, I think.
Yeah.
When you've built it, it took me 5-6 years before I finally added an assistant because I was so nervous that I was going to lose the trust of the clients. And still to this day, I struggle with that. I mean, is it similar in your situation, or?
I feel like I struggled, but now it's like, it's a game. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
Like,
How
don't
so?
you agree?
Oh yeah.
Now that you have it, like,
for sure.
But I think it just takes the right person. You
Yeah.
have to find that
Yeah.
right person. But once you have it, I think it's just that it just will take time to find that who's going to be able to, like, you can count on to be there for
I
you.
think that's so true.
In today's day and
though.
age, it's like,
it's very hard.
impossible.
And I also think there's that piece of in corporate, listen, there's a conversation that so many of us have had who have been through corporate, which is that everyone's replaceable. And then you move into being an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, when you're running, when your name is on the door, you also are like, well, I understand that everybody's replaceable, but that's kind of a problem when you're an entrepreneur, right? You're like, I hope not. And then you look at hiring. I think that that's the key. It's about the trust and the respect and the work ethic that comes along with that. It is personal when you make those hires, when you own your own business.
And when you're a small business.
And when you're small and they're front facing with the client and you've built a business on relationships, to your point, that's a really key factor. But it just shows that that good employees and good partners have such immense value.
Yes.
That they're, yes, sure, you can ultimately find someone to do a job. I understand that. But I really appreciate the care and the time that it takes to find that relationship and then build upon it, because not all assistants are created equal. It's just, they're not. And so to honor that is really important too. I just feel like sometimes we get so caught up in like, yeah, well, what you do, somebody else can do in 5 minutes and it's done. And you're like, not really. Not when you're making the call, right?
Right.
It's a little bit
Totally.
trickier.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
like you said, I think it's
amazing.
when you come to a point in your business growth. And going back on something that you said, as far as like, you don't have to expand to grow or, but I think growth is continuous in a business. But you do it not to say, I want 40 clients instead of 20 clients. The growth is more intrinsic. It's more about, how do you want to feel in your business? How do you want your clients to feel about you? It's more about client experience. It's about how you want to leave a legacy. It's the growth of the micro steps inside your business.
And that enhancement.
Yeah. But trying to, as we all do, instead of focusing on trying to be the best or the bigger, or, oh, someone else did more than me, or that company has more awards than I do, or whatever it is. It's like, but does that matter? Does that matter?
Right.
You know?
I know. I look at that stuff, and at the end of the day, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not. And you got to like look past that.
Yeah.
It's those are like little things.
Such little things.
It is.
It's so funny how we can get so wrapped up into a little thing and it blows up in our mind to be so significant when it really isn't. And how many times if I wish I could go back and just be like, calm down, like stop thinking, just stop thinking so hard about things and just do what you love.
That's why you have to get a glass of wine.
I know. Amen. Amen to that.
There's the secret sauce.
The secret sauce. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So if you could go back to, I think, that defining moment where you're sitting at your house, taking a picture of yourself right now, if you could go back and be in that room with Robyn at that time, like what would you say to her?
You'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't believe it at the time. And if I went back there and said that, I don't know if I'd believe it still, but it's crazy to think back at that point, because I seriously felt like I did not know what was to come. Yeah. And I thought I had my dream job, and that was just ripped in front of me. And now I've created it. So it's pretty cool.
It is so really cool. It's really cool. And it's so interesting and I love stories like yours, because we all have those moments. We all have these moments where we just feel like there is no tomorrow. You know, how can I pull myself up after this? But I think what distinguishes high achievers and creative contributors and people who really just have a trust in themselves, and you don't know it at the time, right? I mean, we all have to go through those moments to just be like, this is what I thought, this is the direction I thought I was supposed to go. Why is this changing on me all of a sudden? But then you have to be able to sit in that moment and allow the dust to settle, and then get inspired by truly tuning in to what makes you happy. And like you said earlier, you now feel like you don't even work. Like you love your job so much that you don't feel like you have a job. And that's what we want for everybody. Like everyone who is listening to us, like that's our passion with what we're trying to do, is to make people understand that it's not linear. There's going to be obstacles. You're going to have low points, but it's what you learn about yourself during those times, and the belief in yourself that tomorrow is going to be a better day, and surrounding yourself with people who believe in you. Like you had that community of support to lift you up and give you encouragement on this. That to me gives me chills, and it's like those stories and your story, I feel it can really help resonate with people who maybe for whatever reason at that point where they need to take that picture of themselves. Do you go back and look at that picture?
Yeah. I looked at it today.
Did you?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Because I was like, I want to look, I got to pull this thing up. Yeah, I did. And I was just like, oh, I remember that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now how proud of yourself can you feel to know that how far you've come?
I'm proud. It's still surreal. Like I don't feel like I made it.
Right.
It's been 8.5 years, which is wild, but like, I still just feel like I'm
living the dream.
Yeah. Like I'm just doing PR. Like,
I know, but you've also opened you now have an office, and that was a really exciting moment for you.
Yeah. And now I got 2 kids that,
oh my gosh,
trying to juggle parent life, and it's a lot.
That's a whole other podcast. We'll have you back on that one. Legit. How do we juggle?
Yeah.
But knowing all the changes that have happened over the years, growing your family, growing a business, all of that, right now in this season that you're in, how do you define success?
I think probably having a career where I don't feel like I work. And also having a roof over my family's head.
Right?
Yeah.
Is success.
It is.
Yeah.
That's what I work for. Yeah. Truly.
Yeah.
And a client asked me that, like, what is my why? He asked me that like before I had kids, and I didn't know how to answer it. And now I'm like, oh, that's easy. Like now, but I didn't know what my why was for the longest time. And now of course, it's my kids. But yeah, I definitely think anything involving them, like my success is involving, the well-being of my family. And the fact that I have, I'm able to take care of my employee, and I don't feel like I work, and that I've created that for myself. And I feel like that right there is enough success I need.
Oh, it's so good.
I love that. I think that's a beautiful way to define success.
I agree.
You know?
I agree. We have a philosophy that leaders are readers. And we also have a caveat now that leaders are listeners, because we may digest content and podcasts and books and things, audible books, things of that nature. Is there anything along this journey, especially as you were building a business, have there been any specific books, any specific tools that you've tapped into that were just kind of in your arsenal of these helped me grow, these helped me define who I wanted to hire, these helped me define what kind of clients I worked for? Was there any personal, professional development that jumped out at you in this journey?
Well, speaking of books, I rarely have time to read because of the 2 kids at home.
Yes. Fair.
However,
very fair.
However,
yes. Could be the Caterpillar book. That was
I do read that almost every night.
Yes. See, and that's a good
and
lesson
do you have
too.
the rainbow fish in your
I do have that one. Yes, that's a great. They all have hidden lessons in there.
They really
I know.
do. We should all go back to children's books.
Give a mouse a cookie.
Oh,
that's a great one.
That's good.
book.
That's great.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, don't take offense. I'm not the biggest podcast person. I can't like.
No offense taken.
I like listening to podcasts, but like one-off episodes.
Sure.
Like people will send me one. I'm like, listen to this, and so I can't like. I'm not stuck on one podcast.
Yes, understood.
I will listen to episodes that intrigue me. So none like exactly come to mind, but as throughout the journey, I have like listened to some about women entrepreneurship and stuff like that.
Sure.
I love self-help books, so I do dabble in those sometimes.
Any ones that have jumped out at you?
Not that I can recall,
totally
but
fair.
I will say, like, over my 8.5 years of being on my own, I will say, like, having joined women's networking groups have really benefited me. I feel like, Debbie, I've known you for
oh my gosh, 5-6 years now.
6. I think it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
And I was dating my husband.
Yes.
Dating
That's
when
right.
I first joined.
Yes.
And I think that's where like, I feel like there's so much like growth happens in those and like relationships and contacts there.
Sure.
And I think that's important. Like the more people you can meet with in your community and establish that support.
Yes.
I think is so important because a lot of people just either stay here, you know, I mean, which is fine. You can network through LinkedIn and stuff, but like, I really think it's important to get out there now that it's like post-pandemic, like get out there.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's old school, but go to networking events and just like connect with people, because I think it really is amazing how it's all about who you know. And that's how I got that radio job. Like it really is. You can meet somebody tomorrow and you could get a door open to an opportunity you've been wanting your whole life. So
absolutely. We're not meant to do life alone.
No, I amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, where can our listeners find you if they maybe have a question or something you've said has inspired them and they'd just like to ask you a question, or maybe they want to learn more about Mack Media?
Yeah. Our website, mackmediarelations.com, MACK, or on social media, mackmediarelations.com.
Excellent.
We'll link to it in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure to have you here today.
This was so
Thank
fun.
you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. If you loved this episode and know of someone who would find value in it, please spread the word and share it with a friend. We are passionate about redefining success, and it would mean the world if you could help us get our mission out to as many people as possible. Please take a moment to write a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. You can also hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Connect with us on Instagram at Success Resequencing Project or via our website at www.successresequencing.com. We'd love to hear your story.